Okay, so cybersecurity. It's just so daunting to me because it used to be, back in my day, it was just an antivirus. There you go, sorted. You don't have to worry about a thing. But now there's just so many different aspects when it comes to cybersecurity because we live our lives online. My phone has all my life on it and I want to keep that secure. But how do you do that? And what does it mean? So joining us today to help us with that from the CNIB, we have Wendy and David. Hi, guys. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello. Glad to be here.
Hi, and thank you for having us.
Let's try and demystify this. CNIB are helping out in October with National Cybersecurity Month. I don't really know where to start. When someone says cybersecurity, I mean, where do you even start with a topic as huge as that?
I mean, it's a really good question because it's such a daunting sounding term, like you were saying. What it really means, though, is basically making sure that people who you'd rather not have looking at your stuff or using your devices can't get onto your computer or your phone or your tablet or similar. And so that means like a lot of things like, for instance, making sure that you don't open up attachments from strangers that might be trying to hack your computer. Make sure you have a good password and are able to get access to it when you need it. It means a lot of things like that. It basically means remembering to lock your phone the way you lock your house's door. I like to think of it as.
No, that's a really good point. The thing is, though, I mean, I totally understand that, but sometimes it's just how do you manage those aspects, right? Because I like to think, I'm never going to fall for that phishing, that funny email that says it's from whoever, Apple, and asking me to go to this link. I'm never going to fall for that. But the truth of the matter is, it's so easy just to do it, one time when you're busy and you're rushed and you do that, and you just nothing is sort of foolproof, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We're all going to fall for this at one point. So can I just start where I kicked off here with antiviruses? Because I kind of think, well, Windows has got Windows Defender built in. Do we need an antivirus in today's day and age, and especially on a smartphone?
Okay, that's a really interesting question. So, I mean, part of the answer is, of course, Windows Defender is an antivirus. It's actually a really good one. They've been doing a lot of testing, and I'm sure you remember a few years ago, it was kind of the, well, I guess it's better than nothing thing. But these days, when they actually try it against known viruses or suspicious viruses, it actually works just as well as all of those fancy commercial ones. So I might live to regret saying this, but most of the time, like 99.999% of the time, Windows Defender is going to do you just as well on your Windows computer as any of those other packages. And it does it in the background and you can safely ignore it. Now, obviously, if you're dealing with like corporate IT, there's all sorts of extra requirements, but mercifully, I don't have to think about that. So I'm happy recommending Windows Defender. On the yeah.
I'm glad to hear that because I recommend, no, you don't need an antivirus anymore.
Yeah.
Because sometimes those commercial antiviruses or antivirus programs, especially the ones that come pre-installed, can be a bit of a nightmare to uninstall if you're a screen reader user.
They can. I mean, they don't want you uninstalling them. In their defense, it's because they're afraid a virus might try to. If I was more cynical, I might say it's because they'd like you to renew your subscription. But yeah, exactly. So Windows Defender is great. You don't have to set it up. It's already there. It works, like I said, really well. It leaves you alone. And you can basically just forget it's there unless it ever needs to do anything. Now, on the question of smartphones, that's where I think it gets really interesting, actually, because the fact is you can't run antivirus on an iPhone at all for technical reasons. Basically, Apple designed the iPhone so that the different apps on it basically cannot talk to each other, except through very, very controlled ways run by Apple. And a big part of why they did this, actually, was to make life a lot harder for viruses. If you did install a malicious program on an iPhone, it would be very, very difficult. I don't want to say impossible because people can be very determined, but awfully close to impossible for it to break out and start interfering with your other apps or with the operating system, which is great. The downside of that, though, is that that also applies to antivirus programs. So anything that claims to be antivirus for the iPhone, iOS, isn't actually. It might just be scanning your files to see if there's any like Windows Trojans on it, but it won't actually be able to protect your phone more than the built-in protections. Good news is the built-in protections are really good. The App Store does not tend to get malware on it, so that's a major vector there gone. And like I said, it would be very hard even for like something in a phishing message to break out of mail and get into the system. Android's a bit more complicated. There is antivirus for Android. I'm not a great expert in that. I've heard that there are some that are pretty good. Android is also very secure by default, but there have been occasional malware, so it is worth looking into there.
Yeah, they both Apple and Google have improved their security in the App Store themselves, right? So it's not so much of an issue as it used to be. So yeah, that's good to hear. So you mentioned their phishing attempts, and we hear this a lot. Antivirus doesn't always help you with that, because it could be a link to a website to fill in and steal data rather than install a program on a device, for example. So can you give us explain more about phishing attempts?
Well, I mean, I think you just explained it really well there, actually. So phishing is where the big thing is they're actually more trying to play you than play your computer. And so basically, it's where they're trying to trick you with something. So, excuse me, you get an email or a text message or whatever, and it's someone pretending to be someone who you would trust. So, like, they claim it's your bank. They claim it's your finance department of your company. They claim they're an old friend reaching out. And basically, the goal is to trick you. There'll be either, like, some software they want you to install that will then do something naughty on your phone or computer, like mine cryptocurrency. Or sometimes they're just going to try and trick you, make friends with you, and then suddenly mention, oh, by the way, I really need $20,000. Could you lend me that? I actually started to get suckered in by one of those once. So, I do need to point out, someone who I met online who seemed really great. Eventually, they started talking a lot about cryptocurrency, and I worked out what was going on.
Yes, red flags.
Exactly.
Yes.
But, I'm just saying that, there's no shame in making a mistake at first, but do pay attention as it goes on. So, I often get text message spam, for instance, claiming to be from Canada Post, saying that they couldn't complete my delivery because reasons. Go to this website, and it's going to be like CanadaPost.top/CA was when I saw the other day. And if I click there, they would say, oh, you need to pay the fee, enter your credit card information.
I got you. Okay. So that's when they say fish, it's like a fishing trip. They're just, sending this out to millions of people and seeing who bites and, what data they can get.
Precisely. They've cast out their fishing rod and they'll see who bites.
Yeah. Oh, wow. And Wendy, have you any experience of phishing attacks?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And like you mentioned before, it's when there's like times when you get pretty tired or you're in a rush and you're expecting maybe a package delivery or a text message you're expecting. And it's one of those things where scammers and hackers get pretty crafty in disguising the website, the link, especially when you're expecting it from. For example, I'm gonna pick on this bank. Sorry, bank. My voice over will read it as CIBC, but it'll be like CIB. So like, okay, well, that kind of sounds like the usual text message I get, but then tapping onto it, oh no, now it's asking for my personal information, my bank information, all those very important, like vital information for them to basically have identity theft. And then I have a little bit of sight, so it looks like the website with the same color schemes, but then it's always off by a little bit. And then I'm thinking, hold on, why is it asking me for all my personal information and for my identity and things like that? So that's something that I would then call the bank. Is like, hey, is this a text message from you guys, and for what reason? And then I went back to the text message. I used my rotor and read it character by character, and it was basically C lowercase l B C. So visually, it looks like CIBC, but it was actually CLBC. So I'm just like, oh, that was very, very crafty. So it's just learning to have those techniques as a screen reader user to use our reading keys and sort of just like double check, dot the I's, cross the T's, and just double check on some of these links that it happens to everybody.
As you said, David, there's no shame in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, this is Wendy's example is a great way of how the screen reader can actually help you. If you're looking at that visually, you'd be a lot more likely to be fooled. But the screen reader lets you know that it's CLBC, which I don't think is a bank. So, that's a nice thing about screen readers.
And of course, when it comes to something like phishing attacks, I think, as you mentioned, David, and you, Wendy, as well, it's all about that. Go with your gut as well. If you do get that red flag feeling of, hang on, this doesn't seem quite right, then go with your gut and double check everything, because it's better to do that than to go through the hassle of trying to either, close accounts or cards or whatever, chase it up and trying to fix up the mess. Can I get on to passwords now? Because, wow, passwords have got so complicated, right? It used to be one password, very easy, I used for absolutely everything. And now it's saying, no, you can't do that. This isn't strong enough. It's got to be 8 characters with numbers and symbols and caps. And trying to keep track of all that is really difficult. Now, I know there are password managers out there, programs specifically that will remember and fill in, when you go to a website or an app, and it will fill it in for you, your password and username. But I've had trouble in the past finding one that's accessible, that works well with, NVDA or JAWS or whatever screen reader it may be. So have you got any recommendations for an accessible password manager?
Well, that's a really good question, actually. It's actually something we've been looking into, and we're going to be talking a bit about at today's session. So we've found a couple that we think work really nicely. One of them is actually completely free. You can pay for extra features, but all the core password stuff doesn't cost a penny. The other one there is a fee for. So the free one is called Bitwarden. And it's an open source password manager that you can install on Windows, on any of the web browsers, Chrome, Edge, Firefox. You can install on your iPhone, your iPad, Android devices, all sorts of things. And it syncs all of them across, and it's pretty decently accessible, actually. There's some keyboard shortcuts that you need to remember, but when you have them, it's pretty straightforward. You press the shortcut to bring it up, and you can create a new password in it, or you can get one from a list. It'll offer to autofill passwords, and if it doesn't offer, like I said, keyboard shortcut, and then you can just find it in a list. So we really like that one, actually. Bitwarden, it's called. All one word. The other pay one that we've been experimenting with, not as much because we're cheap, is called 1Password. So that's all one word, the numeral 1 and then password together. And that one actually is often very heavily recommended as screen reader friendly. We've seen a lot of good things about it. There is a fee. You have to pay a few dollars a month for it. But what you get is a very smooth, very slick interface. It plays well with screen readers. It fills things in automatically. It's pretty straightforward. And all of these are very secure. You create a password, and you have to make sure you remember that one password, because they can't reset it for you because they don't even know what it is. And you use that to log in. And then you have all your other passwords saved in there. So, hence the name of the one of them. You just need to remember the 1Password.
Yeah, I think I can handle that. Mm-hmm. Well, I say that. Mm-hmm. The master password. No, that's very good. The one problem I do find, because I've tried a few of these out in the past, I don't think I've tried Bitwarden before, but it's having these password managers available on every platform that you use? You know, for example, if I want to sign into Netflix on my Roku stick or my Apple TV, you know, well, first, is the password manager available on that specific platform? And no matter which one I've tried in the past, there's always been a platform where, oh, okay, I can't actually get hold of that. But then again, the way around that is to, you know, open up the app on your smartphone and you can at least see what the password is nice and easily from the app on your phone, right? Even if it can't fill it in for you. I'm just a very lazy person, David.
Yeah, so am I, which is why I'm always looking for shortcuts. Of course, devices like Roku, the Apple TV, they do often, when you try and sign in, they let you sign in directly on your phone too. So that's always an option as well when you can do that. The Apple TV, one of the things I like about it is you can bring up the on-screen keyboard on your phone and then type directly with all the voiceover things and with password integration. Obviously, it's not going to be the case with all the other ones. And yeah, like you said, I don't think either of these have Roku apps, unfortunately.
And on password managers as well, I just thought, because it isn't just passwords, you can keep and secure other information in there. Wendy, have you got any more on password managers?
Yeah. You know, whether you choose to use the password manager on the iPhone or iOS or any kind of your Android devices, I like to have that around just because I myself, guilty as charged, always forget my bank machine, debit card, PIN codes. I can enter it 100 times and I still forget it, especially when you don't use it too often. And especially with a debit Visa these days, it's just a tap and then you go, or Apple Pay and then you go. And then when you need to enter those PIN, it's like, oh shoot, which one is it? Is it this one or that one or that one? And one of the great ways how I manage it is I use the Notes app on my iPhone because I always have my iPhone with me. And in the Notes app, the first line is basically the title. So I wouldn't put anything there. Maybe just to say pin me, something to disguise, but that I would know what it is. And then after that, enter in the information such as bank of my name, and then my PIN and updated on such month on this year. So then I know this is the most current one or the recent one. And you can then find the More button near the top right corner of the screen and swipe right to find a Lock button. By pressing on that Lock button, and depending on how you set your security, you can either use your Touch ID, Face ID, or a passcode to unlock. So then anybody who maybe like you have a family friend who just happens to be looking for something for you and happen to be in your Notes app wouldn't come across and say, oh, well, that's your PIN. That way, putting on the lock will block anyone from seeing it, and then to view the note, you then will have to enter in your either Touch ID, Face ID, or the passcode. Now, it is good to keep in mind, though, that if you had a previous passcode and you forgot what it was, to unlock the note, it will be impossible to retrieve, just for extra security.
David, can you tell me more about this? Is another thing I'm seeing a lot of recently when I'm going to websites and even apps now. When I'm getting to the login screen, it's asking me if I want to log in with a passkey. Can you give us any more information about what is that?
Passkeys are really neat, actually. They're not doing a great job of explaining them, I'm afraid, which is too bad. Basically, they're a new standard that is ultimately hoped to replace passwords. So the problems with passwords are pretty obvious. You have to remember what they are. Other people can guess them. And so on and so forth. So the idea with the passkey is to take advantage of all of those fancy security features that are in our devices to authenticate us instead, and then have the device remember that it's us. So my phone knows what my face looks like. Other people's phones know what their fingerprints are. So what that means is that it can very quickly authenticate me, tell that it's me. And so what it can do then is store basically a cryptographic key to access a website, a specific account on a website or app or whatever. And when it goes to the website, the phone can just check it's me. And then once it's satisfied that, share the key to get in. And the great advantage of this is that there is literally no password. There's some places, Microsoft, for instance, you can literally remove your password from your Microsoft account completely and sign in entirely with the passkey. So what that would look like would be when you sign into your computer, instead of typing in a password, you would ideally grab your phone, log into your phone, and then it would unlock. In practice, they can also work with a PIN, so you can remember a 4 to 6 digit number that would unlock it on the computer. So that's sort of the ideal, is no passwords. You just use the things that are on you to get into everything. And this sounds less secure, but it's actually a lot more secure because the passkeys are these long 128-bit bit or some such number. I don't remember the exact number.
Yes.
Alphanumeric hexadecimal strings that would take a lot longer to guess than, say, my password guessed. What's slightly less good is moving the passkeys around can be a little bit inconvenient. So Apple, Google, and Microsoft have all built out ecosystems to move passkeys around in. So if you use an Apple phone, you can create a passkey that will then automatically be on your Apple laptop as well, so that in both cases you would just use Face ID or Touch ID to get in and you wouldn't have to worry about anything else. On the other hand, if you're using an Apple phone with a Windows computer, that gets a lot harder. The officially supported way is that the computer will bring up a QR code that you scan on your phone that then tells the phone it's okay to talk to the computer, and then the phone sends over the passkey. The other way is using a password manager. This is one of the nice things about the ones I was mentioning earlier, like Bitwarden, 1Password, things like that, is you can save your passkeys in there. And what that means is that they then automatically show up. So let me walk you through what this would all look like in practice. Let's say I was creating a new Google account on my Windows computer. Go to google.com, find the create an account button, come up with a new email address. It asks me if I want to save a passkey. I press yes, and my password manager asks if it would like me to save that as my Google passkey. I just press the button saying yes. And then after that, all I have to do to sign into Google again is when I go to Google sign in, I will get a message from my password manager saying sign in with the passkey. I press yes. And it may prompt me to put in my password manager password or PIN, but that's it. And I can grab my phone, and if I try to sign into a Google app on my phone, the password manager will pop up and say, do you want to use your passkey? I just press the button, and I'm signed in. So when it works well, it's actually a lot less fuss than a lot less fuss than passwords. And people who understand cryptography a lot better than I do say that it is actually way more secure. So
I'm not even bothered about the security. I'm never going to forget my fingerprint or my face.
Exactly. I usually bring my face with me, so that's great.
Exactly. It's just far more convenient. Now, that sounds amazing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really need to get into those a bit more.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the nice things about that 1Password password manager, by the way. It tells you what sites have passkeys and helps you set them up.
Oh, fantastic. Mm-hmm. Wendy, David, thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Hi guys, Stephen here. If you want more content like this, then all you have to do is like and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to catch new episodes of Double Tap, you can do right here on YouTube every weekday from noon Eastern, or on AMI Audio across Canada, and of course, in your favourite podcast app as well. Thanks for watching.